The Chicano movement of 1960s, also known as El Movimiento, was a campaign created by Mexican Americans who were seeking equality with other Americans. Many of their approaches modeled the civil rights movement in hopes that they would produce similar results. Some of the big issues of the Chicano movement was the mistreatment of labor and farmer workers. This eventually turned into the disrespect to the culture of Mexican Americans. So, in hopes of creating empowerment for Mexican Americans, they created this movement and used their culture and resistance in hopes of changing society.
So basically, some prominent figures of the Movimiento music movement include Agustin Lira, Luis Valdez, and Felipe Cantu. And basically, the Movimiento music movement was an offshoot of the Chicanx movement because it basically addressed like the grievances of Mexican Americans who were being mistreated by like American farm workers, and it basically showcased like their talent and ingenuity when faced with oppression.
Here is a snippet of a video that we found of a famous song that sort of summarizes the resistance that farm workers showed to their other employees or their managers and how they unified their people.
Thank you very much. In 1965, many years ago, I was 19. I joined the United Farm Workers in Delano, California, directed by Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and many others. And I was really surprised when I went there because all of my life I had seen Mexican Americans struggle for survival. But I had never seen Mexican Americans, Chicanos, fight for their rights. And it just made such an impression on me to see the children, the grandmothers, los tíos, las tías, aunts, and so forth on the picket lines. It just really inspired me. So even though I didn't know that much about music at the time, I began to write songs that showed that. This song is called Ser como el aire libre, to be free as the wind. How the world makes sense. Ser como el aire libre, como se pasa volando. Ser como la paloma también se pasa volando. Cuando yo era chico, mi madrecita decía, cuídate mi mijito, no te me metas en lío. Ser como el aire libre, nomás se pasa volando. Ser como la paloma también se pasa volando.
So the movimento music can be defined by two distinct phases, which were intimately related. There were the songs of the Chicano movement in the early years, from 1968 to 1973, and then stylistic changes happened when it became more community-based in ensembles in the years 1973 to 1979. So music of the Chicano movement began to surface with farm worker struggle, as we said before, and these huelga strike songs then moved into the cities and took many different forms. Because there was a goal of uniting the community, Mexican musical genres were very prominent styles of the musical movement. And so, for example, there's the corrido, which was a popular form of song that tells a story, kind of like a ballad. And in this way, people were able to tell their story and get their voices heard. Yeah, and I guess represent and like get their voices out, represent themselves. So one of the examples I have is from the band Los Peludos. It's called El Quinto Sol, which is a song talking about the terrible treatment, and despite this, that they'll persevere and keep working together. So I'm going to play that, a bit of it. So that's just a little snippet, as you can maybe hear, telling a story of their lives. And one of the major goals of the Chicano movement was to create identity, because there really wasn't one, and it was kind of like this clash between like not being American enough or not being Mexican enough. And so trying to and music was a way that was, and culture was a way to establish this identity. And these songs clearly illustrated these ideas of identity, revolution, and the homeland. And yeah, and a quote that I found that might be nice to end with is from Rodolfo Gonzalez, who's a Mexican-American poet and political activist. And it says, "Guitars, singers, and songs, silence weapons of oppression, inspire a noble people to struggle for our cause."